There comes a moment in some people's lives when the silence becomes louder than any words they could ever hear. It isn't the silence of peace, but the silence that follows years of disappointment, broken dreams, and opportunities that never came. At 54 years old, David believed he had reached that moment. He wasn't looking for success anymore. He simply wanted one reason to believe tomorrow could be different from yesterday. Yet what happened over the next 12 months would leave everyone around him wondering how one ordinary man completely rewrote the ending of his life. On a cold Tuesday morning, David sat alone in his kitchen. Rain tapped against the window. An eviction notice lay beside an empty coffee cup. His phone hadn't rung in days, and a family photograph rested face down on the table. Just 1 year earlier, he had believed he was living the American dream. He had worked faithfully for nearly 30 years at the same manufacturing company, believing loyalty and hard work would always be rewarded. Instead, an unexpected restructuring erased his career in a single afternoon. Losing his job didn't just destroy his finances. It slowly dismantled everything else. His marriage collapsed under constant financial pressure. Friends stopped calling. Bills piled higher every month. He avoided neighbors because he couldn't bear explaining what had happened. Every job application ended with another rejection. The message was always the same. We've decided to move forward with another candidate. David wasn't afraid of hard work. He was afraid that hard work no longer mattered. Soon, the mortgage fell behind. His electricity was close to being disconnected. He began selling cherished possessions just to survive. Collection agencies filled his voicemail, and stress brought headaches and sleepless nights. Deep inside, one painful belief grew stronger each day. I'm too old. I'm finished. I'm invisible. Then something unexpected happened. Unable to afford the daily fuel costs, David began taking the early commuter train to job interviews. Across the aisle sat an elderly man who quietly read from the same worn leather notebook every morning. For nearly 2 weeks, they never spoke. Then one morning, the stranger closed his notebook, looked directly at David, and asked a simple question. "Can I ask you one question?" David shrugged. The elderly man smiled. "What have you done this morning that your future self will thank you for?" David had no answer. The stranger continued quietly. "Most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because every morning they repeat yesterday, while hoping tomorrow will somehow be different." Before leaving the train, the elderly man handed David a folded piece of paper. "I have one challenge for you," he said. "Don't try to change your whole life. Just commit to one small habit every morning for the next 90 days. When David unfolded the paper, only one sentence was written inside. "Before you give the world 1 hour, give your future 1 hour." The next morning, David did something he hadn't done in years. Instead of reaching for his phone, checking emails, or worrying about bills, he spent 1 uninterrupted hour learning a valuable new skill and taking 1 concrete step toward a better future. Some mornings, he improved his resume. Other mornings, he studied new technology or reached out to someone in his professional network. The rule never changed. No excuses, no perfection, no skipping. The first week felt pointless. Nothing changed. The bills remained. Rejection emails continued arriving. But slowly, something inside David began changing. By the 3rd week, he found himself waking with purpose instead of dread. His confidence grew because he was investing in himself before allowing the world to remind him of his problems. Weeks later, an online discussion about the new skill he had been learning led to an unexpected connection. That connection introduced him to a small consulting opportunity. It wasn't glamorous, but David treated it with the same dedication he had shown throughout his 30-year career. The client was impressed. That client recommended him to another business, then another. One project became several. Referrals replaced rejection emails. His phone began ringing with opportunities instead of debt collectors. Slowly, his finances recovered. The overdue bills disappeared. The mortgage was saved. The electricity stayed on. For the first time in years, David slept peacefully. His family noticed the difference before he did. Friends returned. Neighbors no longer saw a defeated man hiding from the world. They saw someone who had rediscovered purpose. Yet whenever people asked how he had turned everything around, David always gave the same answer. None of that was the biggest change. People expected him to mention the business or the money. Instead, he smiled. The biggest change happened long before the money. David realized hope had returned before his first client arrived. Confidence returned before his debts were paid. His identity changed before his circumstances did. The money simply followed the man he had become. But one mystery still remained. Who was the elderly stranger? David boarded the same commuter train every morning, choosing the same seat where they had first spoken. He waited for weeks, hoping to see him again. But the stranger never returned. Finally, David asked an older train conductor if he knew the man with the worn notebook. The conductor smiled gently. "I think I know who you mean," he said. He never spoke much, unless someone looked like they needed it. David asked for his name. The conductor shook his head. "I never knew it." Then he added one sentence David would never forget. He used to tell people they had more time than they believed. David never saw the elderly man again. Months later, he opened the worn notebook the stranger had left behind. Most of its pages were blank. On the final page, one handwritten sentence stood alone. "Your future is built before breakfast." That evening, David sat once again at the same kitchen table where his story had begun. The rain still fell outside the same window, but the eviction notice was gone. The empty coffee cup had been replaced by shared meals. Laughter filled the room instead of silence. Family surrounded the table once more. Only then did David understand that the elderly stranger's greatest gift wasn't the notebook. It wasn't even the habit. It was the belief that every new morning offers another chance to build a different future. Maybe David's greatest discovery wasn't that one simple habit changed his life. Maybe it was discovering that it is never too late to become the person you've been waiting to meet. If you were given one extra year to completely change your life, what would you do differently starting tomorrow morning? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might become the encouragement someone else needs today. And if David's journey inspired you, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next story. Thank you for watching. And remember, your future is built before breakfast.